Hey guys, welcome back to another Steam Deck video, and not just an ordinary Steam Deck video, but my 1 year review of the Steam Deck. Now, I received my deck about this time last year in 2022, and I have a lot to say about my experiences between then and now. Not all the things I experienced were positive, but not all the negative things were deal breakers either. Needless to say that this handheld console has shaken up the portable gaming industry in such a way where it will never be the same again. I have a lot to say about it, so let's dive in. What is the deck? The Steam Deck is a mini computer with built-in controls. That's essentially it. The way that Wikipedia describes the Steam Deck is a custom AMD APU, which means Accelerated Processing Unit, based on their Zen 2 and RDNA 2 architectures, named Aerith after the Final Fantasy VII character Aerith Gainsborough. The CPU runs a 4-core, 8-thread unit, and a GPU runs on 8 compute units with a total estimated performance of 1.6 teraflops. Okay, now let me put that into commoners terms. Gaming computers need certain parts to run. Most computers that want to run most games require a CPU, which is the brain, and the GPU, which is the muscle. The Steam Deck has these in a form of an APU, which is a single chip that does both. Some handhelds lean heavily on just a CPU to do the muscle work for lighter loads, and this works, but the Steam Deck had a targeted goal to play modern games, which requires a similar architecture of modern systems, hence having an APU. All this to say that the deck is made like a computer, so it has the ability to run games at specific settings to make them playable for the hardware they are on. When this thing was rumored to come out, the public was both hesitant and excited, but as Valve confirmed the specs and solidified that the device was in fact real, people leaned towards the latter reaction. Fast forward to Valve allowing people to get hands-on impressions and posting videos on it, and that was a wrap. The hype for this thing blew through the roof, which meant kick rocks for those who didn't hop on the bandwagon early and pre-order one. If you were waiting to see reviews before buying a Steam Deck, chances were that you had at least a 6-month wait time. I was one of those people, but I didn't hop on the train until later. I think I pre-ordered my deck around March of 2022 because Valve stated they were ramping up their production, and then I ended up getting an email in about June, July to complete my order and pay. The deck arrived shortly after that, and the timing was great. I had a trip to Singapore the day after, so I immediately unboxed the deck, loaded games on it, and enjoyed it on a very long plane ride. I think after I received the deck, they definitely became easier to obtain, but like all devices that have a high demand and low supply, the deck still went through its paces of being scalped, to more than double the MSRP. Now I stated this in my Analog Pocket video, and I stand by it. Buying something, regardless of the price, is up to the consumer. You have the right to spend your money on whatever. What I hate is when people buy up a product before others just so they can sell it for way higher. This gatekeeps a community from growing. Like imagine an older kid buying all the candy before the younger kids can even get to the store. Then the older kids sell the candy outside the store for a higher price. It's just shady practice, and I don't like it. If you do like it, chances are that you've scalped before, and to that I say, hey, thanks for watching. The most general word I hear when it comes to the Steam Deck is support. Not only are the customers and players supporting the system by purchasing it, but Valve themselves have consistently shown and still show support to this device. They push out updates, integrate statistics such as playability into the Steam store, and even provide guidance on how to do things the console wasn't really intended to do. I say intended loosely because this is a PC that you can do anything on, like you can on a desktop. The other end of the support beam that holds the deck up is third-party companies. And when I say that, I don't mean games, we'll get into that later, but companies that make accessories for the deck. With the system being open source, a lot of already existing PC components and parts worked fluidly with the Steam Deck. But that didn't stop markets from honing in their focus and making specialized cases, grips, docks, battery packs, guides, skins, the list goes on. The support for the system is endless because the community behind it is just happy to be here. We're just happy to have a device we can play on and mess with. You can literally look up how to do anything on the deck, and there will be some type of guidance on how to do it online. I've personally used many guides online to dabble and install emulators and learn the file system. As mentioned before, Valve is supporting the success of a device very well. If you go to the Steam Deck and look at the games you own, you'll see an indicator telling you how compatible the game is on the device. If it's fully compatible, it's green and verified. If it's not compatible, it will say unsupported, and if there are a few things that are wacky but still work overall, it's yellow for playable. Oh, and there's also an unknown category. I'll come back to these later. Apart from a few handheld multiplayer focused games with anti-cheat, the deck plays everything. Now, does it play everything on the highest settings? Why would you even ask that? But again, because it's a PC, it can adjust in-game settings and make its hardware adapt to what is being chosen to run. The easiest point A to point B way to play something is something you own on Steam. You install the game, click play, and boom. But no one stops there. At least no one who's cool. Why not add launchers like Rockstar or GOG or Epic? It's a PC and you can. Now, it is a Linux PC, so that creates some difficulties, but it's still possible. And if you don't want to go through that hassle, you can go through the other hassle of installing Windows on the deck and circumventing all the hoop hopping you'd have done on the Linux side. Harto, how did you do all of this? Was it hard? Can you guide me? No, I can't because I didn't do any of this. The furthest I went was trying to install the Rockstar launcher, Origin, and GOG. Then after that, I just went, nah, never mind. I just didn't do it. Don't assume I'm cool. This device is a playground to those who want to fiddle, and I don't want to, so I won't. But what I did do was set up EmuDeck and play some GameCube and Wii U games on here because I actually had interest in those and want to carry my save file from Dolphin on my main desktop PC. All this to say that you can play games on the deck, even if they're not displayed on the front page saying, hey, this one runs well. You can make a lot run on the system, it just depends on how much patience you have to do so. And just to go back to the verified aspect of the Steam store, it falls under the same opinion I have with non-Steam games. Just because something is not verified or marked as unsupported or unknown does not mean it doesn't work. A lot of games that say they don't work actually do. And if you're curious to see if something works, try it, or look it up on YouTube, or Google it. You're a big boy or girl, you can manage a search engine. Valve and other publishers have also done a good job at staying consistent with updating the game status. A good example for me is Halo Master Chief Collection. Videos on my channel, go check it out. This game launched and the only thing you could really do was play the campaign. So it launched as unknown or unsupported, but then 343 did some patching on their team and made it so the multiplayer for Halo works with the anti-cheat. Now, is it perfect? No, but it does work more often than not, and the status on the Steam Deck has shifted to a yellow playable tag, indicating that the things may not work as well all the time. Every day, more items get added to the list of games that work well on the deck, and with some open source research, you can also figure out how some people are making the games run better. Now, no game system has done well without a direct competitor, right? Does the Steam Deck have a competitor? I don't really think so. It's easy to pair up against an Xbox and a PlayStation and be like, "Wah!" You sound dumb when you do it, but it happens a lot. The deck is a PC and PCs are customizable, so you have way wider margins when trying to compare things. Why would I compare an Intel Celeron piece of poo to something with 64 gigs of RAM and a 4090 GPU? That wouldn't really make sense. The part of the competition that comes down to even dragging the Steam Deck into the conversation is the fact that it's a portable, or maybe hybrid would be a better description. You have an early competitor like the Nintendo Switch, but again, not really a competitor in my eyes. Yeah, they may have some of the same games on there, but Nintendo is doing its own thing and has its own first parties. Then you have the real competitors. I did the bunny ear thing while saying that. These include the Aya Neos, ROG Ally, and all the other Windows handhelds that release way too often. These again are dope, but a product is only as good as the support it receives. You should get that tatted. The issue that many cool one-off products have is limited support. These handhelds are cool and can play everything your desktop Windows machine can, but it's even more not perfect than the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck runs on SteamOS, meaning there's one thing for Valve to support. Now, Valve, the company that makes the system, the OS, and also sells the game on their storefront for their system. Just support central over here. The other Windows PCs don't have that linear structure. Some are just supported for a month, some for a year, some might not receive the right driver updates, and some might. There's a lot of wiggle room, which in the end bites the user in the butt. I like to draw the comparison between iOS and Android. There's only iPhone. I know there are different versions of the iPhone, but the architecture of the phones is similar and progressive. There are many different flavors of Android. That means if an app comes out, let's say Instagram, the App Store pushes out an update for the most current iOS version. But on the Android side, there needs to be a specific update pushed depending on what flavor chip you're running. I hate saying the word flavor, I'm going to stop saying that. My point is the Steam Deck has parents that love it, and other Windows handhelds, so-called competitors, have one parent that smokes in the house and another one that takes odd jobs. I mentioned the deck was Linux-based, and the only thing I want to say about that is nice. This is positive, but at the same time a negative, I guess. If you like open source freedom, wow, here you go, buddy. But if you're not into that thing, give it some time, you will be. But this may make navigating the system in desktop mode a little more confusing than a Windows machine. Again, a hurdle that can be overcome with some nice Google search learning, maybe even some ChatGPT lessons. I work with computers, so having a Linux-based system to play with was a plus for me, except I forgot my root account password, and yeah, I have to reformat the whole thing if I want it back. But, plus plus. Now, what separates a console from a handheld? One is portable and can be held in your hand, and the other one not. The luxury comes with a price of a poopy battery. The Steam Deck's battery really depends on what you play. You can play a low-intensive game and get more than 3 hours easily, but I'm going to assume that you're not just buying this for 2D games. If you start playing some heavy hitter AAA games, you're looking to be lucky to get even an hour and a half of battery. Again, this all depends on what you're playing and the settings attached. If you're asking less from the device in terms of graphics and brightness, you'll get more playtime. One thing I personally noticed was how long of a battery life I was getting when emulating Wii U and GameCube. I know they're older generation games, but a lot of other games still hold up very well. In a game like Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD, I was consistently getting 3 hours or more. I'm sure you already do this if you own a deck, but just have the charger nearby. It's not really a hassle when you consider the fact that you're able to play some really dope games in different settings, all in your hands. Maybe future generations of the deck can implement better battery saving technology, but for what we have, I don't really have any complaints. Now let's talk about comfort. Ergonomics, I was surprised. I guess we can go ahead and just start with the button layout. I've never used a D-pad or face buttons that were lateral to the joysticks. I'm used to moving my thumbs up and down to traverse between the two, but this layout just works. Like, I don't even have to rewire my brain, it just feels good. The trackpads are, I'll just say they're cool to have, but I haven't encountered a game yet where they seem to be an absolute necessity. The buttons, joysticks, just all the input methods are built well. I haven't had any issues or misinput or drift, and it feels like any other first-party controller. And the additional back buttons are awesome. I use them in almost every game, and I don't think I can use a controller now that doesn't have back buttons. Apart from the buttons, the console itself feels very comfortable in the hands. The grip portions are in the best place and are the perfect size as well. They allow your hands to grab the system without making the device itself feel huge. I've mentioned before that I'm a pretty big fan of playing games portably when possible, and the Steam Deck just has been better in the hands than other devices. The Switch without a grip doesn't really give you much to hold on to and cramps my hands pretty quickly, and I don't have big hands either. The analog pocket is on the smaller side and isn't as ergonomic either for longer playing sessions. I don't see the need to buy a grip for the deck because it already has them. One negative thing when it comes to holding the console is that the weight of the deck does play a role. It's not heavy, but it is heavier than other portable consoles. You're not going to be hovering this thing at eye line. You'll most likely be playing this and resting your arms on a table or on your lap. I think the pricing for the deck is extremely competitive. If you compare it to something like the Switch, it's a little higher in price. If you compare it to something like the current gen consoles, Xbox Series X or PS5, it's similar, but plays games a little worse. But that's just us comparing this thing to gaming consoles. Like I said, this is a mini PC at its core. If you're looking for other mini PCs that have these same specs and a high quality controller built in, I guarantee you'll agree that this price is justified. Valve has even stated that they don't make much money on the deck. The area they're trying to marketize is their Steam store platform by selling games. Spoiler alert, it's working. I think I saw recently that over 7,000 games are marked as at least playable on the deck, and that doesn't include the ones that still work, but say they don't. The ROG Ally came out at an even more competitive price point of $599 and $699 USD. These are also mini PCs with a built-in controller, except it runs Windows and has more power. I just want to say real quick to that power is not a one-to-one with optimization. You can have good optimization with less power and something can still run well. But yeah, the ROG Ally coming in at that price puts it close to the top Steam Deck option. This is good news. That means more companies who want to get into this arena of hybrid consoles and portable devices, whatever, will try to make the price somewhat similar. Again, at the end of the day, it will all come down to how well it's supported and how well the games are optimized. The last topic I want to talk towards is how versatile the deck really is. We already covered how many different games you can play on it and how you can put Windows on it. You can just do whatever you want. I've used this on plane rides, chilling on the couch, and even as my main gaming console while traveling for weeks at a time. I have a third-party dock which isn't necessary but helps with convenience. I've just brought a controller and a dock and played this like a normal console while in a hotel with the TV they had in the room. I've also been able to plug in some controllers and play with friends on the TV. If we were comparing it to the Switch, because that seems to be the hybrid baseline, rightfully so, it's not as easy as docking it, taking the Joy-Cons, and handing them to two people. But it's still very easy. If the controller is plugged in, boom. If it's Bluetooth, just sync it then, Boom. You may need to enter the controller settings and adjust the controller order, but that isn't very difficult. I'd actually say that the Steam Deck has one thing over the Switch in convenience, and that's being able to sync almost any controller to it without needing a third-party dongle. So what are my thoughts 1 year after owning the Steam Deck? It's not perfect, but it's perfect for me. It fills in a gap that was made smaller, but still visible by the Nintendo Switch. My biggest positives surrounding the console is the support shown to it by all sides, the economics, the fact that you can play almost any system within reason on it, and the fact that it's very modular in terms of swapping things out, whether that be memory or a faulty input method. What do I dislike? Dislike is a rough term in my eyes, but I do wish for better anti-cheat compatibility when it comes down to some multiplayer games. I know this is a developer side of the house issue, but I would love to be able to play some of these awesome games that I own online. The only other issue I have is the weight, but again, not really an issue. You're holding a mini computer in your hands, so having it rest on something is within reason. One negative that turned into a positive for me was the Linux-based architecture. I wasn't familiar at first, but the more you play around with it, the more you realize how open and free it is. It's like touching grass but virtually. I've used the Steam Deck extensively in the past 365 days. I have the mid-tier 256 gig model with a 1TB SD card, and that's more than enough for me. It's a great console when you want to kill some time, get some grinding on, travel with, or even just see if you can handle a certain game. I've become that guy who buys games on Steam when possible, and the only reason is, well, I can play it portably now too. Plus, games on Steam go on sale way more often than consoles do. I'm curious to what your guys' experience are with the Steam Deck. I know a lot of people, you, who watch my videos are two things: Steam Deck owners and two, not subscribed. What? That's crazy. What about you guys? Have you enjoyed the deck as much as I have in the past year and change? Has it made you a handheld gamer if you weren't already, or do you use this thing docked more? I truly love this thing, and I know I'm not alone. I'm a part of a few Steam Deck Facebook groups, and the user community is all over this thing, rightfully so. As always, I appreciate you guys watching the videos. If you like this video, please drop a like. If you want to stay tuned or support the channel, please subscribe. Or, don't subscribe. I don't control you. See you guys in the next one. Bye.